Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. If you boards, fire up your fingers and come join the conversation. Hey everybody, it's Friday, June 26, 2020, and you are watching The Right of the People. Glad to see you guys out there with us. It says my microphone appears to be noisy. Well, you know, when don't it? Got to be a little bit of the crack-a-lacking going on. So I've changed my microphone positions. Maybe that has something to do with it. Amateur hour. Totally, completely, and utterly, right? So my mic's a little bit closer to me, so I guess I can just turn the gain down a bit. And it should be good. Let me know out there in the chat if it is suckish or not. Again, thanks for everybody for coming by. Speaking of thanks for coming by, I'd like to say hello to my esteemed panel. Let us start with the irascible yet lovable Squibload. How you doing, sir?
I'm thirsty. I'm going to get some ice water.
You're going to get some ice water? Okay, go ahead and get some ice water. Soothe your parched throat. Out there for the, if not the first time, maybe the first time in a long while, we got Seven Wonders with us. How you doing, sir?
Good, my friend. Thank you for having me on. Been a while, but I started drinking way later than usual today, so I thought maybe I can come on without embarrassing you. So here I am, good or bad. Good, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
Just double checking to make sure the audio is sounding good, which it seems like it is. And then we got down below, we got David, but Dave is having some trouble with his mic and camera, so I don't know if Dave's going to say a whole lot today. Dave is one of my patrons, and for those that don't know, I've started just automatically sending an invite to the panel to my patrons because, you know, they rock, so why not? I figure if they're invested enough to actually, you know, give me money, then they're invested enough to be on the show, right? If they should choose to do so. Speaking of choosing to do so, I'm glad that you folks out there in the chat have chosen to be here tonight. Who do we have? Who do we have out there? Let's see. First up was Chris Fulmer and the first thumb. Thank you very much. Next up was the Poor Conservative with the second thumb. Thank you very much. Then we got Squibload out there. Who else? And Gabriel's in the house. Midnight Range TM is cooking up a storm out here. Boob Sweat leads to pearl necklaces. How you doing? Cav Trooper 19 Delta out there scoping things out. Let's see. Squib Lift is, you know, Squib's alter ego pulling double duty, so cool. Let's see. Who else do we have? Bo Weevil. He says, what's up? Feels weird to be able to comment. David Campbell says, here I is. What's up, Bo Weevil? You not driving home from work for once? So there we go. Got to get a few more people hopping in. If you are just joining in and you haven't sounded off in the chat, sound off in the chat. That way I can know you're out there and say hello. If you are watching this on a replay, well, if you have an opinion on whatever we're talking about, sound off in the comments below. I tend to read all my comments and I try to respond to everything, unless you're, you know, being a knucklehead, in which case, well, you get shown the door, as roll call would say. There's a lot going on this week, and I think we're just going to have to jump into it. Oh, there's a new one out there, Jack. Don't think I recognize you. Welcome to the show. If you are new to the show and have never seen this train wreck before, it's where we talk about current events and news stories that are related to the Second Amendment. As you can see in my scroll that's going at a snail's pace down below, this is where we use the first to defend the second. So, be part of the conversation here. This is a two-way street. It is not just me and my panel talking to you guys. We're talking with you guys, and that is a very important distinction. This is a two-way medium here. That's what I love about it, as opposed to radio and television, because you are part of the show. So, sound off. Let's see. Oh, Bo Weevil says driving home. He just has 30 days of Facebook jail. Gotcha. Clover Tax out there in the house. All right, guys. Hide your lucky charms. He might try and take them back from you. Grim 90 is there. So let's get moving. First off, how are you guys doing? Anything new? Anything exciting going on with you fellas here in the chat?
Just working. Happy to be working.
Yeah, they had you down and out from the Coco Roro, didn't they?
3 months. I've never been out of work 3 months.
Wow, yes, M. Gabriel, it is too soon to vote for Joe Biden. That comes later. You can vote for him then. Old Nibbles.
I think he's doing one of those absentee ballots because he's voting so early.
Oh, well, it's strange. We're actually going to be talking about that tonight, those mail-in ballots.
I was hoping so.
Oh, yeah, that is part of the agenda tonight. Yes, I have my own agenda. And it's Pro 2A all the way, baby. But first, we all know that wonderful experiment in self-governance in hippie love and Antifa anarchy is coming to a close. Yes, folks, the CHAZ is getting chopped. This is from the Associated Press by Gene Johnson from June 22nd, 2020. Seattle will move to dismantle protest zone, mayor says. Seattle, faced with growing pressure to crack down on an occupied protest zone following 2 weekend shootings, Seattle's mayor said Monday that officials will move to wind down the block's-long span of city streets taken over 2 weeks ago that President Donald Trump asserted is run by anarchists. Mayor Jenny Durkin said the violence was distracting from changes sought by thousands of peaceful protesters, opposing racial inequality and police brutality. She said at a news conference that the city is working with the community to bring the Capitol Hill Occupied Zone, or CHOP, or as it first was, CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone that wasn't very autonomous, and they got tired of being made fun of, so they went from CHAZ to CHOP. To an end, and that police soon would move back into a precinct building they had largely abandoned in the area. Durkin also vowed to address some of the protesters' demands, including investing more in Black communities, reimagining policing in cooperation with community leaders, and pushing for accountability measures and statewide reform of police unions. The mayor did not give an immediate timeline for clearing out the occupation, but said additional steps would be examined if people don't leave voluntarily. That's probably one of the more polite threats I've ever heard. With scores of people camping in a park in the protest zone, Durkin said peaceful demonstrations could continue, but nighttime disorder had to stop. The cumulative impacts of the gatherings and protests and the nighttime atmosphere and violence has led to increasingly difficult circumstances for our businesses and residents, Durkin said. The impacts have increased and the safety has decreased. A shooting Sunday night was the second in less than 48 hours at the edge of the zone, which is named for the Capitol Hill neighborhood near downtown Seattle, and emerged during nationwide protests over the killing of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. The 17-year-old victim was shot in the arm and declined to speak with detectives, police said. Gunfire early Saturday left a 19-year-old man dead and another person critically wounded. The victims were taken to a hospital by volunteer medics in private cars, and police said they were met by a hostile crowd that prevented them from immediately getting to the scene. It was not apparent if the shootings had anything to do with the protest. Gunfire sometimes occurs in the neighborhood, especially on warm summer nights. Protesters cordoned off the several block area near the police's East Precinct after Seattle riots unleashed tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbangs on large crowds of mostly peaceful protesters, drawing the condemnation from many city leaders and a federal court order temporarily banning the use of the weapons on demonstrators. After police largely abandoned the building, protesters took over the area, with demonstrators painting a large Black Lives Matter mural on the street, handing out free food, playing music, and planting a community garden. Its existence incensed Trump, who criticized Durkin and Washington Governor Jay Inslee, both Democrats. Peace has prevailed during the day. On Monday, people lounged on the turf at a park while volunteers handed out food, water, and toiletries. Artists painted designs on wooden barricades, and a few candles burned in front of a sign on the police building listing people killed by officers. At night, however, the atmosphere has become more charged, with demonstrators marching and armed volunteer guards keeping watch. While not having a police presence here, people are free to do whatever they want to do, said Bobby Stills, a Seattle resident who has spent time volunteering at the protest zone. You never know who's going to show up. That's why people here are on such high alert. They don't know who's who or what's what, or their intentions. Durkin, who has faced calls from protesters and even some city council members to resign over her handling of the demonstrations, and Police Chief Carmen Best said they did not immediately have a timeline for returning officers to the East Precinct, which was established to better respond to emergency calls in the city's historically black district. They said officers would return safely and in the near future. Best noted that some other crimes, including rape, arson, and burglary, had been reported in or near the protest zone. Demonstrators who had marched to the West Precinct building downtown were returning to the zone when Sunday night's shooting occurred, police said. Andre Taylor, who founded the anti-police shooting organization Not This Time after his brother was killed by Seattle police in 2016, said Monday that he had warned protest organizers that the city would need to retake the area because of the violence. That CHOP area is attracting this kind of activity and it's unsafe, Taylor said in a Facebook video. I told them, all those people that were supporting you guys, they're going to start walking away from you, especially all those white people that were following you. They don't want to be associated with any part of that violence. Former U.S. Representative Dave Reichert, a Republican who previously served as sheriff in the county where Seattle is located, also called on the city to take back control. Elected officials have abandoned the rule of law and their oath to protect and defend our communities, he wrote in an opinion piece for Washington State Wire, a website devoted to state political news. They have abandoned their law-abiding citizens and have been cowardly bullied into surrendering the East Precinct and multiple city blocks. So there you have it, folks. It looks like, despite what a lot of people thought, CHAZ, CHOP, whatever you want to call it, is not ending with a bang, but with more of a whimper. What do you guys think?
I mean, these people, they're going to reelect Mayor Merkin and have to deal with that again. They'll end up with another chode from him.
They'll end up what?
You know, they'll just, you know, he'll clean them out. They'll just come back and do it again. They'll form another place, call it chode, and he'll get reelected and all that. And...
yeah, undoubtedly. Seven, do you have an opinion on this?
I just think it's the atmosphere there.
What, Seattle? It's all that damn grunge music.
Well, you know.
Came in and killed off all the good 1980s hair bands, damn it.
I think it was just a matter of time. Yeah, you know, I think they were kind of doing what they believed in for the first 5 days or week and a half or something. But, yeah, it all kind of went downhill quickly. And, you know, for me, the very first thing was when they had a literal, unlike some night strike shows, a literal dumpster fire. They tried to call Seattle police, or not police, but fire department, which I thought was kind of funny. And then this last time, well, not the last time, I guess it was the first, there've been 4 people shot now, right?
Something like that. Yeah, there's been a few of them.
Yeah. The first time they had that shooting with 2 folks there, they called the police and 911, and I'm sure most of you guys already know this, but the cops showed up and they wouldn't let them in to secure the scene. therefore the cops wouldn't let the paramedics in.
Yep.
So the dude bled to death. But the crazy thing about it is, I saw an interview like a couple of days after that. I believe it might have been the same day, but some old stoner dude was saying, "Yeah, if somebody gets hurt, man, we'll just carry him down to the hospital. It's just right, a couple blocks down." So anyway,
yeah, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, apparently.
Let's see. Out in the chat, they're talking about. Had a couple of people join in. Hello, Stephen Sheets. How are you? Let's see. Warsaw Patriots in the house. Warsaw says CHAZ, Antifa, CHOP, they're all the same and they need to be arrested. Squib asks, the mayor's name is Merkin. Does he know what that is? First, it's Durkin, and it's a she. It's Jenny Durkin. Let's see. Mostly peaceful protesters? Really? Yeah, I know, right? Tataz asks, being 100% serious here, I have to ask, my personalized plate reads BKBTTY, Black Betty, for the song Black Betty. Is that now considered racist? I don't know if it's considered racist, but it's considered a down tick against you, man. I should time you out for that because I got so freaking sick of that damn song during one dance competition season that my daughter was doing, because every freaking dance school around here and every freaking competition we went to did a number to that song, and I got so tired of hearing it. It was in my damn sleep, and now I get to look forward to hearing that again tonight as I try to go to sleep. Thank you so much. Thank you. Midnight Rain says, couldn't get to the victims fast enough. Oops, too bad. Guess the peaceful protesters shouldn't have slowed them down. Yeah, probably. Bo Weevil said one of the guys who was shot has a GoFundMe and wants to sue because of slow police response. Well, who's he going to sue? He should be suing Antifa or the protesters or whoever the hell was there that was blocking the police and the EMS from getting there.
After the last GoFundMe, does anybody want to give anybody any money?
No kidding. Jack says, I think CHAZ was a failed attempt by the Marxists. They are funded, will continue trying to post their camps. Unless we keep them locked up, they'll keep protesting like dummies. Oh, yeah. Viking Preparedness, I think, was the YouTube channel, but I may be wrong, did a video on this being a Marxist insurrection. I kind of agree. Sandhill Shooters out there, how you doing? Captain Jokic says boy, what a name. Says the residents of that neighborhood should force the mayor to resign. I get the feeling the entire city of Seattle is kind of soft, though. Yeah, I kind of get that feeling, too. Sandhill says, 10th thumb, looks like some of y'all are slacking. I know, man. We got 31 people out there, only 10 thumbs. Jeez. Thanks for love, folks.
I was number 7. Go figure.
Hey, you know what? Even give it a thumbs down if you hate it. That at least gives me some kind of feedback on what y'all are liking or not. So
I saved mine till the end of the show. You got to work for it, man.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That
it's
makes
not
all
just
kinds
you.
of sense.
It's everybody. I saved mine for the end of the show.
Let's see where we at. The other week, I did the other week I did a single shot on the ATF. And Congressman Gates's announcement that the ATF is thinking about doing something with pistol braces, and his letter to the ATF about that. Well, there's a fellow out there who started a petition to the ATF. So let's take a look at that. I signed it, and I'll go ahead and put a link out there. Let's see.
Is this another thing where it wasn't on their radar, but as soon as somebody asks them a question, they want to ban it? Or
I don't know. And that's the thing. I don't know a lot about, what specifically they're looking at banning or whatnot. Just, hey, they're thinking about banning something to do with pistol braces. To which my thought is, let's not do any of that crap because bad. Slippery slope and whatnot. It's the same thing that happened with the bump stocks. I know we went over this and over this and over this. But if you feel the same way I do, there is a petition. And it's, not much of a petition. It says, we believe this issue has already been decided on and should not be changed due to political posturing. New regulations would immediately impact over 700,000 Americans and turn them into criminals if they do not relinquish their braces. Not a very long petition, but needs 99,846 more signatures by July 17th, and it's got 154. So let's give it some signatures, folks. I will chuck El Linkaroonie out there in the chat. Maybe. Here we go. So there's the link. If you guys want to let them know what you think, as I encourage you to do every week, go on over there and sign that. I think it's important because we should not be giving any more ground up than we absolutely have to on our gun rights. We've lost too much already, and damn it, not 1 inch as far as I'm concerned. Because gun laws don't work. First off, as I've said many, many times, gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control, and they know this. They have absolutely no effect on what their stated intent is. And we have proof. Yet again, the Windy City just keeps on giving us this proof. This is a piece in Breitbart from June 22nd, 2020. Stringent gun controls fail to prevent 100 shooting victims in Mayor Lightfoot's Chicago. Stringent gun controls such as gun owner licensing, waiting periods, and assault weapons ban, and other prohibitions requirements failed to prevent 100 people from being shot over Father's Day weekend in Mayor Lori Lightfoot's Chicago. She just looks evil, don't she? Some of the gun controls, such as the firearm identification card requirement, are state level, while others, such as the assault weapons ban, are county level. The state mandates that would-be gun buyers first acquire a FOID card, and the process of getting it requires a background check. This is a de facto universal background check system wholly separate from vetting process one goes through to purchase a gun or obtain a concealed carry permit. The Giffords Law Center notes, Illinois law provides that no person may acquire or possess any firearm or ammunition without a valid firearms owner's identification card. The Illinois State Police lists the process for buying a gun in Illinois. Buyer must possess a valid FOID card. Buyer must verify local firearm ordinance requirements. Buyer must display valid FOID card to FFL prior to handling firearm. Buyer must complete Federal Form ATF 4473. FFL notifies the Illinois State Police Firearms Services Bureau to perform a background check in accordance with state and federal laws. FFL receives an approval from ISP to transfer the firearm. Buyer must abide by the state of Illinois waiting period before taking possession of the firearm. The waiting period for a long gun is 24 hours and 72 hours for a handgun. Upon taking possession of the firearm must be unloaded and enclosed in a case to transport. The state also mandates a 72-hour waiting period for gun purchases and firearms restraining orders, aka a red flag law. The Chicago area assault weapons is a Cook County prohibition which also bans high-capacity magazines, quote unquote. Ironically, Democrats in Washington, D.C. have pushed universal background checks, gun owner licensing, a red flag law waiting periods, and a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines as a way to stop gun crime nationally. Over the weekend, these laws failed to prevent 100 people being shot in Mayor Lori Lightfoot's Chicago. 14 of the Chicago victims died from their wounds. And just for gits and shiggles, let's go to, where is it? Come on. Where's Hey Jackass? No. Did I not put this in? I must not have put this. Well, you know what? Let's go to. For those of you that don't know, HeyJackass.com is a website that gives us insight into Chicago and their gun statistics, their crime statistics. June to date, 66 people shot and killed, 405 shot and wounded, total shot 471, with 70 homicides total just in June alone. This week, 16 shot and killed, 107 shot and wounded, total shot 123, with 16 total homicides. Year to date, 288 shot and killed, 1,349 shot and wounded, total shot 1,637, total homicides 315 this year in heavily gun-controlled Chicago. So 30-day stupidity trend. Let's see. That's an 82.3% were shot and wounded. 17.7 were shot and killed. A person is shot every 2 minutes, 2 hours and 37 minutes in Chicago, and they're murdered every 13 hours and 32. So it gives you all kinds of statistics on, where it happened, where they were hit. That's funny. The little body outline has a Coco Roro mask on it. That is hilarious. Tells you about police-involved shootings, self-defense shootings, the Corona meter, 2020 causes of death in 91.1% of the murders in Chicago are via gunshot. So interesting data. If you want to go check it out, HeyJackass.com. What do you guys think? Does that illustrate the point we're trying to make with this, that gun control doesn't work? Or do you think that there are other factors at play, and that if we just did gun control everywhere on a much larger scale, it would work?
We just haven't done enough up to now.
Yeah. It hasn't worked, so we need to do more of it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Very good, comrade.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous, as I think most of us know. It doesn't work anywhere they've tried it. And, the bad guys are always going to get guns, once again, as we all know. But, even in places where it's hard to get guns, I want to say London, for an example, their deaths by stabbing have gone up dramatically. So, there's no point. It's not a good answer. And I'm pretty sure the vast majority of mass shootings tend to happen in gun-free zones. So, yeah, that plus Chicago and Detroit and Baltimore and Atlanta. Yeah, that kind of proves it to me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. FC Drifter says, yes, more government, more cops in particular. They sure stop the murders and solve the ones they miss. There you go. Warsaw Patriot says, gang control. Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, we could just make crime illegal. That would probably help.
Yeah.
That'll never work. We just need more gun control.
Yeah. I mean, if you make crime illegal, then you're discriminating against the poor, disadvantaged people whose only means of supporting themselves is through the unofficial redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. I mean, come on, you can't put Robin Hood out of a job.
Hey,
yeah,
you can't. You cannot make crime illegal. It is protected by the Constitution. It says in the Bill of Rights that the right to commit crimes shall not be infringed.
It's right. Absolutely right.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
the whole thing about, gun control ain't working. We need more gun control. We haven't done enough. We say that tongue in cheek, but, well, in effect, that's what this lawmaker is saying right here. From The Truth About Guns by Dan Zimmerman, June 21st, 2019. Illinois State Senator. Maybe it's best to just grab all the assault weapons after all. Illinois State Senator Julie Morrison is a sponsor of Senate Bill 107. The bill would ban most semi-automatic firearms and accessory sales. Current owners of the banned guns would be required to pay a fee and register their so-called assault weapons. The fee would be $25 per firearm, and failure to register them would be a felony. In a recent town hall meeting with Morrison, Mike Wiseman, vice president of the Illinois State Rifle Association, was in the audience. When Wiseman asked Morrison why paying a fine to register a firearm is necessary, she allowed as to how maybe it would just be simpler if the state just grabs all the scary guns her bill would outlaw. Constituent, you have SB 107 to take away my semi-automatic firearms. Is this? No, that's not a video. Man, too bad it's not. Oh wait, maybe this is a video. Let's go ahead and see if we can listen to this.
Nobody's gotten called out for that.
Senator Morrison, you have an SB, you have a Senate Bill 107 to take away my semi-automatic firearms, to ban them. But there's a clause.
Not to take, now let's, to
There's a
clarify,
clause in the bill.
I'm not taking your gun away from you. You just can't buy any new
Well,
ones.
you want me to turn it over to the state police?
You can't buy any new ones.
Unless I give you a fine, unless I pay a fine for each firearm and register them, then I get to keep it.
Okay.
So, if I get to keep it, if I pay a fine and register it, then how dangerous is it in the first place? Why do you need to ban it all? Why do you need to try to ban my semi-automatic firearms in use and that are being purchased today?
Well, you've just maybe changed my mind. Maybe we won't have a fine at all. Maybe we'll just be a confiscation and we won't have to worry about you paying the fine.
And tyranny gets applauded. You hear that? Well, how dare you speak up, you rube? How dare you say anything, peasant? How dare you decide that maybe you might want to keep your lawfully acquired property? How dare you stand up for yourself and question me, you freaking small, disgusting worm of a peasant? Maybe I just won't let you keep anything. See, I almost started cussing there. I'm very surprised, but I managed not to. What do you guys think? Do you think that is illustrative of what they actually think of us poor peons?
It's another one of those, what's good for me is not good for thee. We keep hearing it over and over again.
Yeah, indeed, it's extremely hypocritical, as always, from a politician. But yeah, I guess that's to be expected at this point.
Captain says, I'm registered as a Democrat and have owned guns for a while. Democrats have destroyed their argument for no guns in the last month. Now I think every legal person and business owner should own one. That's it. Everybody who's legally able to own one should own one, or two, or three, or four, or as many as they want. Let's see. Jack says, LOL, we may as well ban fast food because blood pressure. You think you're kidding, but...
I thought they did that in New York.
Yeah, that's a Bloomberg thing. Chris Fulmer says, well, here you go. She just said, okay, we will take them. Then applause. Oh, no, Ghost! I'm scared now. Ghost Tactical's out there in the house. Guy that comments is in the house. Now, Tatas. I'm not going to repeat that one. Let's see. Chris Fulmer points out, and I think rightly, that it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Read up on history. I don't know if any of you were fans of the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, but all of this has happened before. All of this will happen again.
Don't mess with a classic.
Yeah. So, that's what they think of us, people. How dare you stand up for yourself? How dare you question me, you filthy, filthy peon. These people are even willing to break their own laws to get to us, to deny us of our rights, to deny us of that which no man has actually granted or can grant. Thus, no man should be able to take away.
Indeed, and they unfortunately seem to forget that technically they work for us. Go figure.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, that got forgotten along the way.
This is a piece from The Truth About Guns by Carl Busjager from June 20th, 2020. Albuquerque declares all parks education facilities to ban the lawful carry of firearms. Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller has banned firearms from city parks in the wake of the shooting during the vandalism of a statue earlier this week. You might be scratching your head over that, since the New Mexico state constitution rather specifically forbids cities from regulating firearms. If you guys don't know what they're talking about, go back and watch the replay of last week's show. I showed a bunch of video from that, and we kind of deconstructed the video and went over it. So go check that out in the replay. After tonight's show's over, though. Keep watching. No law shall abridge the right of the citizen to keep and bear arms for security and defense, for lawful hunting and recreational use, and for other lawful purposes, but nothing herein shall be held to permit the carrying of concealed weapons. No municipality or county shall regulate in any way an incident of the right to keep and bear arms. Or New Mexico statute, yada yada, unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon. Unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon consists of carrying a concealed loaded firearm or any other type of deadly weapon anywhere except in the following cases: by a person in possession of a valid concealed handgun license issued to him by the Department of Public Safety pursuant to the provisions of the Concealed Handgun Carry Act, and nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent the carrying of any unloaded firearm. Keller is adopting the St. Louis gun control model, pretending parks are somehow schools or child care facilities or amusement parks, whatever designation they need to justify carrying firearms there. Matt Ross, communications director for Keller's office, said Friday evening the new order is an extension of efforts the city began last year to prohibit weapons in facilities used for educating young people. We issued that first administrative order to make it clear that the state law that applies to schools also applies to community centers, Ross wrote in a text message referencing a state law that prohibits deadly weapons at facilities used for school-related activities. This latest administrative instruction makes it clear that the law also applies to city parks and recreation centers. New Mexico Statute 29-19-8 forbids carrying a gun on school premises, as does 30-7-2.1. But it appears Keller, and presumably some fairly incompetent legal counsel, missed this part. A. As used in this section, school premises means 1. The buildings and grounds, including playgrounds, playing fields, and parking areas that any school bus any school bus of any public elementary, secondary, junior high, or high school, or in which school or school-related activities are being operated under the supervision of a local school board, or any other public buildings or grounds, including playing fields and parking areas that are not public school property, or in which public school-related sanctioned activities are being performed. Now, that's actually kind of similar to Ohio law. Under Ohio law, if, for instance, in one of our local parks, they use a football field as a practice field. If you're in that practice at the park and the school comes down to do a practice there, the entire park is now a school activity and you have to leave. So that's similar to something we have to put up with in Ohio. But to go back to the article, because I digress, A park off school premises is not a school except when an official school-sanctioned event is taking place there. Keller is now violating the state constitution and laws, which also limit the application of school to parks. Come to think of it, Keller's parks redefinition also conflicts with the school designation in the 2210A 40. That's impressive work even for a Democrat. But let's say Albuquerque pushes on and somehow designates some sort of sanctioned school activity as happening there on a permanent basis, thus pseudo-lawfully making parks into schools. Whoopsie. That would mean Albuquerque will need to license or certify park staff and administrators who work there and meet the minimum education standards, run everyone through background checks, and provide ongoing professional development training. Heck, they'll even have to provide park goers free food. And I haven't even gotten into the various facilities requirements for schools that would now apply to the parks. I really don't think they thought this through. Well, what I'll have to say is it's going to have to be fought in court because they're going to do what they want to do regardless. I mean, and they'll make you fight them in court because it's not their money. So why do they care? Do you gentlemen have an opinion upon this?
Okay, so could they stretch this even further and say if the school's having a field trip at that location,
Yep.
it would apply?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Back when that applies in Ohio. If you're like at, say, the zoo and you can carry in the zoo, the minute a school bus comes there, it's a school activity. It being taking place on a premises, and you got to go disarmed. You have to leave.
Yeah, well, in these days with psychotic opportunists who want to become famous by committing a mass shooting, yeah, it's ridiculous to have a few good guys with guns around where children are. Duh.
Well, of course not. They might, get the idea that guns are normal and good in the hands of good people. We can't have that.
You can take a field trip to the police department. That's fine. But, yeah.
Exactamundo.
No, I mean, it's ridiculous. We all know a couple of guys with guns could take out a mass shooter before most of the damage is done. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't understand how these people can even still attempt to justify that gun-free zones are good in any way. I don't understand their logic.
Because they don't understand our laws. They don't understand how firearms work. They don't understand anything about marksmanship, training, tactics, anything like that. They don't understand a lot of things. What they know is what they saw in the movies, what they heard on the news, and that these are killing machines, so therefore they must be bad. They don't understand their own hypocrisy. They don't understand a lot of things, and they don't want to understand.
Yeah, I think that last point is the biggest problem. They don't want to understand. They want to stick to their narrative and take all our guns away, so we are helpless.
Armament Nax has showed up out in the chat, as did Two Gun Kitty, the catnip outlaw. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. Lost my train of thought. We're going to go ahead and kind of stretch the envelope here a little bit and talk about something that's not directly Second Amendment related, but does affect the Second Amendment. Voting. The article I'm about to read doesn't necessarily have a Second Amendment focus, but as we have seen time and again, elections have consequences. And who you elect to public office can have a dramatic effect on your right to bear arms. I mean, we see that every day with the different politicians across this country who are attempting to restrict. I mean, for instance, state senator in Illinois, as we just illustrated earlier, had her opponent won, perhaps the interaction that was had there would probably wouldn't even happen, and B, who knows, it might have been more 2A friendly. So elections have consequences, and who wins and who loses an election is of drastic importance on pretty much everything in your life. This is from powerlineblog.com from June 22nd, 2020 by John Hinderaker. How the Democrats collude to enable voter fraud. One of the most pernicious phenomena of modern times is the collusive lawsuit. This is how it works. A left-wing organization sues a government agency that is also controlled by the left. The lawsuit alleges that the agency is obliged to do something that the agency would like to do, but the Democrats can't get it passed. Then the parties, supposedly adverse but actually in collusion, settle, quote-unquote, the case by having the agency agree to do what it wanted to do all along. If all goes well, a court enters an order enforcing the settlement. So the net effect is that a policy that the Democrats couldn't get passed is now a court-ordered mandate. This happens often. In Minnesota, Democrats are colluding to enable voter fraud in the upcoming primary election. This presumably is a warm-up for the same effort they will make to enable fraud in the general election in November. With many believing that President Trump has a good chance to carry Minnesota after coming close last time, the Democrats are taking no chances. The case is League of Women Voters versus Simon. The League of Women Voters, a solidly Democrat organization, is suing, quote-unquote, Minnesota's Secretary of State left-wing activist Steve Simon. The lawsuit seeks to suspend Minnesota's election laws, ostensibly on account of COVID-19, so that persons mailing in absentee ballots won't need to satisfy the statutory requirement of a witness to verify their identity. Without that requirement, voter fraud will be even easier than it is at present. If a Democrat finds a ballot lying around, as will happen many thousands of times in Minnesota, where the voter rolls include hundreds of thousands of names that are dead or otherwise not eligible voters, he can fill it out and send it in. No questions asked. Democratic Secretary of State Steve Simon, who consistently abuses his office to facilitate voter fraud, quickly agreed to the settlement that his party wanted. If you think this is a scandal, you're right. Happily, the Trump presidential campaign and Minnesota's Republican Party hired excellent lawyers to intervene in the case and seek to block the proposed settlement. I have embedded their opposition to the proposed consent decree below. Here are a few quotes that demonstrate how the Democrats tried to achieve an illegal result by settling a collusive lawsuit. This voter fraud effort is part of a nationwide campaign. Democrats now contend that, in light of COVID-19, their legislative agenda is required by the Constitution. The Democratic Party, through its law firm Perkins Coie, has filed COVID-19 lawsuits in virtually every swing state, including Minnesota. See where we're litigating, Democracy Docket, bit.ly, blah, 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 gives a website. Allied groups have bolstered the Democrats' effort by filing dozens of copycat suits across the country. For example, the League of Women Voters brought this suit in federal court, while the Alliance for Retired Americans, backed by the Democratic Party, and the NAACP, backed by the ACLU, brought overlapping lawsuits in state court. The good news, when these COVID-19 lawsuits face adversarial litigation, they usually fail. Many citations at the link. This is why a collusive settlement is the easiest path to voter fraud. In this case, the fraudulence of the settlement is obvious. The defendant filed an answer on June 9, 2020. In it, he denied all plaintiffs' material allegations. He also denied that heightened scrutiny applied to the witness requirement and argued that the requirement would survive any level of judicial scrutiny. The cases cited by the intervenors indicate that this is clearly correct, and he asserted that plaintiffs failed to state a claim upon which relief could be granted, all of which were sound legal arguments, as the many cases cited in the intervenor's brief show, but the Secretary of State gave away the store on purpose. At some point in the next 7 days, defendant made a sharp U-turn. On June 16th, the parties jointly submitted a proposed consent decree to the court. Under the decree, defendant would totally refrain from enforcing the witness requirements and concede to all four kinds of relief that plaintiffs sought for the August primary. Further, defendant would concede that plaintiffs made a sufficiently strong showing on the merits of the claim, a position directly contrary to the one he took in his answer a week earlier. In short, Minnesota's Democratic Secretary of State colluded with a Democratic plaintiff to rewrite Minnesota's election laws to facilitate voter fraud for the benefit of the Democratic Party. The Democrats' motion to approve their collusive settlement will be argued in federal court tomorrow. Given the overwhelming authority cited in the intervener's brief, I assume the judge will disapprove the settlement, but this is an excellent example of the evils of collusive litigation. It is a huge problem that can be mitigated only to the extent that the courts are not controlled by Democrats. In a related article, here's why we need to resist any and all efforts at mail-in voting with coronavirus as an excuse. This is from lidblog.com by Wes Walker. Come on. Really? I don't need all these damn pop-ups. See? I hate this shit. Oh, seriously. All right. What happens if you get a ballot in the mail and it doesn't have any candidates from your party on it? Does this count as voter suppression? Remember when objecting to large-scale mail-in ballots was proof that you wanted to suppress the vote? Well, it didn't take long for their concerns to be vindicated, suppressing GOP votes. We live in crazy times where it's getting harder to tell the difference between basic incompetence, like an honest printer error, or a dirty trick played by someone willing to win by any means necessary. The slate of candidates was all Democrat from Joe Biden down to a dog catcher, but on the upper right, it clearly stated it was a Republican ballot, and it had my name and the correct information on the return envelope, Karen Gardner, the chairwoman of the Bernardsville Republican Municipal Committee, said. The error was laid at the door of the printing company that sent out the ballots, but the government still had a role in the mix-up. Usually, the Somerset County Clerk's Office would do the printing. However, after New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy ordered every voter to receive a ballot in the mail, the job was farmed out. Exclusive. This is from a tweet by Alex Zidane. Exclusive. 500 to 700 mail-in ballots sent to Republicans in Bernardsville were incorrectly printed with only the names of Democratic candidates like Joe Biden, Senator Sanders, and Malinowski. Somerset County Clerk says error made by printer. The company's president explained that out of 1.5 million ballots, there were only about 500 that were glitched. Human error, he calls it. That's great, but we all saw what a big difference 500 votes can make in a single race. Combine that human error with issues like outdated lists, people receiving ballots at old and new addresses, and ineligible voters getting ballots sent to them, that throws a lot of uncontrolled variables into the electoral process. Or even this problem on the subtweet by NJ Vintage. I never received a ballot, and I'm a registered Republican. Never received a ballot. The Heritage Foundation published a searchable list of 1,285 cases of voter fraud. At least 220 of those listed cases involved absentee ballots. Each case on the list includes a URL for the original independent source. That list includes 1,100 criminal convictions, 48 civil penalties, 95 diversion programs, 15 judicial findings, 17 official findings. I'm sure that a Google search would lead to thousands of other examples. If the Democrats and their sycophants in the media really cared about disenfranchising voters, they would fight against watering down the impact of the votes of American citizens who are voting legally. But it's become evident that they aren't striving for one man, one vote. They're trying to skew elections their way. Their first love is power, and anything else is gravy. And I absolutely, wholeheartedly, with all of my being, believe that. What do you guys think? Am I getting my panties in a wad over nothing here with mail-in ballots? Or is this something about which we should be concerned?
We should be very concerned. As much fraud as there's been, especially lately, anything that they do to introduce more fraud or the possibility of more fraud, just it throws, I don't like to use the term, I guess. Well, I guess I can, whatever. Red flags, right? Look, if they're gonna say, "Oh, well, you can't go vote because you're gonna get this virus and it's gonna kill you," but they let you do all these other things. I mean, look, you can have social distancing where they're 6 feet apart. You can require them to wear a mask. I'll even wear my keffiyeh when I go vote. I mean, you can do all the things you're already doing. People are going to places like Home Depot and Lowe's. They're not even counting the number of people in there, and it's packed full of people. Apparently, you can go downtown and riot and burn the place down and don't have to worry about social distancing and stuff like that. I mean, there's still some places that are doing some stuff that is kind of ridiculous. I know they're trying to comply with the laws and all this other stuff, but I watched the kids last Sunday at one of the local high schools do their graduation. And I think they must have broadcasted or something like that, because you've seen the kids wearing their cap and gown. They're standing 6 feet apart in the parking lot, and they're walking them out onto the football field, and there was nobody in the bleachers, right? So if you can do a high school graduation with social distancing, you can vote with social distancing. There's no excuse. I mean,
right.
I'm not saying I agree with the whole, you guys know how I feel about the stupid masks and stuff. It's like, this is no more deadly, really, than the flu that's already there. Sure, it's new, and sure there's this, and sure there's that, and the numbers are playing with it and all the other stuff, but this is just BS. And if you're that scared, I guess get an absentee ballot, but they only count those if the election is close, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a fail-safe put in there. So the absentee ballot system already exists. If you're this person that is hiding in your house with your door barricaded, you're having everything delivered, you're not seeing anybody, and you're terrified, then just you got plenty of time. Get an absentee, problem solved,
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to try to keep this really short, because if I talk more than about 30 seconds on this, I'm going to go on a rant, which nobody wants to hear that. We definitely have more than enough problems already with, how should I term this, illegal voting. And I've seen it, I've witnessed it. I've heard many people tell me that they voted multiple times in 2008. I'm sorry. Anyway, but it's already out of control. Dead people voting, anyway, yeah, here we go. Anyway, no, yeah, it's not good. We need to make it better, not worse.
Well, I think that if we go to mail-in ballots for the November election, foregone conclusion, there will be rampant voter fraud. It will be rigged. I won't trust any result in it. It's absolute bullshit. We should do everything we can, fight tooth and nail, to make sure that bullshit doesn't happen.
Agreed.
Somebody out there said it's the pandemic in effect. Let's see. Ozzy Osbourne barks. That's a bunch of bull. I'm a printer. The final proof has to be okayed before it goes to press. That's what I thought. This is a bunch of bullshit. Armament Axis says Brandon Herrera tested positive for coronavirus and he's doing good. Yeah, I saw that video today.
Lots of people have tested positive and they're absolutely fine. They either feel a little bit sick for a short time or they're asymptomatic. I bet you I've caught this thing twice. I still standing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to take it one step further, and I promise I'm going to stop talking about it. I am one of those psychos who think everybody should have a voter ID in order to vote. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, in Ohio, you have to show your ID at the poll. You have to show your driver's license.
You're supposed to here, but last time I voted, one person showed up without, and the woman said to her, "Oh, don't worry. I trust you. You're good." And I'm going, "Are you kidding me?"
Mm-hmm.
I would have said something.
Kidding me?
I would have said something.
I've literally seen people vote multiple times, and
how the hell could the other poll personnel have said, "Oh yeah, that's good"?
Because of the kind of ballot she asked for.
Bullshit on that.
Okay, I don't know if maybe they don't do it in Ohio, but here you walk up with the scarlet letter. At least in the primaries, you walk up with, so they know how you're voting. They know because you can only vote for one side or the other, right? And that you get a big red letter on your ballot. You have to ask for, I want this one or that one. So she was asking for a certain party. I'm not going to mention.
Democrat.
So, you could go, well, it's a primary. Who really cares? It doesn't matter. Voting is voting. If you do it for the primary, you might do it in the.
I would have raised hell. I'm sorry. I would have whipped out my phone, started recording, and like, are you seriously going to let this lady vote without showing her ID? I would have raised hell. Shit, I'd have put it out live, but I'm that kind of jerk.
Not all of us can go live from our phone. We're not all Mr. Big Stuff like you.
Oh, please.
Oh, yeah, I just got a...
You could do it on Facebook or Instagram.
No, I literally just got an email today from, I want to say StreamYard, that said you can now go live from your mobile device. Just literally got it a few hours ago. So I haven't looked into it, but yeah, I did.
Guy that comments says, I always make sure to vote early and often.
Okay, go live from your mobile device, but if you don't have enough subs on your channel, YouTube's not going to allow it.
So it's the 1,000 sub thing's still going to apply, huh?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm 300 short. I'll get there once I start doing videos. Haha.
So most of you know, I'm sure have heard at one time or another that last year on Halloween, I got interviewed by a reporter from Voice of America for a series on guns in America that they're doing. Well, the first episode of that premiered a week ago, and I thought for sure that the second episode was going to come out today, but it hasn't. And it's supposed to be, the second episode's supposed to be my episode. But I wanted to show you guys the first one. I'm not worried about copyright strikes because Voice of America produced content is in the public domain since it's a U.S. government entity. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first episode of the Guns in America series on Voice of America Connect. It's only 11 minutes, 29 seconds. I'll forewarn you, some of you are going to have an aneurysm over this, some of the things you're about to hear. I guess this person is supposed to represent the middle ground. But, let's remember, I try to keep things family friendly here.
My views on guns are complicated. I recognize how powerful and potentially destructive they are. I've had family members killed, self-inflicted, by suicide. But I also am a gun owner. We own 5 or 6 guns, mostly rifles, shotgun, hunting rifles. But we also have a handgun in our gun safe. On the other hand, I know the research on gun ownership. The likelihood of victimization is first and foremost rooted in the home. You're much more likely to harm yourself or others with a gun than you are to ever use one in self-defense. We are going to the gun range in town, and this is the place where a couple of years ago I was on the trap team. I met someone in town who shoots guns, sent him a message to see if he was free, and he is, so he's meeting us there.
I can't actually arm at work, so...
Oh, did you come from work?
Yeah. I was up this morning.
This guy. Oh, Lord have mercy.
There's this really simplistic way of thinking about guns often, which is people are anti-gun or they're pro-gun. We like to imagine that this is a simple phenomenon in the culture, that you own a gun and so you have all of these different attitudes and you must have these different ideas, and that just isn't true.
I'm always fast though. That's pretty quick.
I'm used to firearms. I've been relatively well trained with them, and I've been shooting them all my life. I carry a concealed weapon permit for both Wisconsin and Minnesota.
I have no issues with whatever the majority of people want to regulate, as long as they don't want to say, I don't have a right to. Mm-hmm. If they say, you have a right to, but you have to do this, okay, sure, no problem.
I'm sorry, I have to take a second to get some composure here. I'm really trying not to rip into...
I can't watch it on our end, so I'm watching it on the YouTube end, and there's a lag. Yeah, what is up with that stance?
Yeah,
what is
that? That was a little bit off. Yeah.
Honestly, I really couldn't hear it very well at all.
Well, there's still more. I'm really trying not to tear into the stuff they believe. I'm trying to be polite about it.
Okay, my question at this point is, why do they even own any firearms? If they believe this crap, why do they even own them?
I don't know. Well, actually, she kind of goes into why she does.
Guns are as dangerous as cars. I would be fine with regulating them like a car. Mm-hmm. You have a license, you have training, you have to pass the test, and you have to recertify. I personally don't have an issue.
That's what I agree with. I mean, when I said that my views on guns are complicated, I think they need to be harder to get a hold of. I mean, our issue with gun violence is that guns are so easy for anyone to get a hold of. And the people who I feel totally comfortable owning guns and carrying them or whatever, go for it. Good. I want it.
My rights aren't predicated upon your feelings. First. At all.
I want to know you're carrying, but not Joe Schmo who could just pick one up anywhere.
Because, Joe Schmo, right?
This is a DPMS model AR-10. It currently has a 10-round magazine in it. It's capable of 30 and 50-round magazines. Safety off. Shot. No, I did hit it. Some B.
The best part was shooting a shotgun. I don't like AR-15s personally. I don't enjoy shooting them. I'm not into long-range tactical precision shooting. I don't.
So because you don't enjoy it, I shouldn't be able to have it?
It's not a hobby of mine. And I also, I have a lot of mixed feelings about even putting AR-15 on video.
Pause. Possibly the most user-friendly, easiest to learn on platform in existence is the one that she doesn't like. And she seems to think it's only for long-range and tactical shooting. A modular system that can be customized to your stature, to your purpose, to your state laws, to whatever. It just screams ignorance. I'm not saying she has to like it or, it's my favorite gun or whatever, but this just screams ignorance. I own guns, but I don't know jack about guns.
Well, that's like Alyssa Milano. She's very outstandingly anti-gun, yet she admitted she owns two. So, yeah, once again.
You know what they also sound like to me? I own shotguns and I own hunting rifles, and that stuff's okay because I own it and it's okay. But, this other stuff, well, I don't own that and I don't like that, so you shouldn't be able to have that either.
Right. Kind
of sounds like the arguments that the stuff people were saying about bump stocks. Just throwing that out there. I personally didn't like bump stocks. I personally didn't own one. I personally thought they were nothing but a range toy. But just because I feel that way doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to have it. But I digress.
Totally agree. I mean, I never owned a bump stock either, but I did a video showing the letter I sent to President Trump about it, that, you know, showing my dismay, and I've quoted him. I get these texts with surveys in them and stuff like that, and I love doing the ones that give you a place to comment, because I've told him so many times. Well, of course, he's not the one reading them, but anyway, yeah, I said, yeah, the 8-year assault on your Second Amendment rights is over. I just keep telling him that again and again and again and again, and yeah, hopefully he's going to figure it out before it's too late.
Yeah. All right.
There are things that
go ahead.
There are things I don't like, and when I say stuff about it, whatever, I think some people might assume that I think that I'm okay with it being banned. I'm not okay with it. I don't care what you have, and just because some people don't know how to use them right or whatever, for me, sometimes it's how people in our own community, these people aren't them, by the way, but people in our own community do stuff and say stuff that gets attention, that makes, I guess, that gives them incentive to try to, ban something, or just the way people talk about their guns. I understand you can own them for any reason you want. You don't have to own them to keep the government off your back. But the way some people talk about their guns that are in our community, they make us all look like the people that we're perceived as already. How's that? They don't help.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, let's go ahead and get back to the video.
For a lot of people who have experienced mass shootings, an AR is an emblem of everything that's wrong with gun culture. And I totally understand that. We live in different realities, If you've been affected by gun violence, your reality about what guns are is one thing. And if you've never been affected, you can kind of blithely go on with your life, never really confronting that. Prior to 2008, when I started researching guns, I never really thought about my vulnerability. I never thought of myself as someone who needed to carry a gun in self-defense. But as I started interviewing people and reading books from the concealed carry worldview and watching media on these ideas, I started to develop a fear of crime that I'd never had before. And so there were times during this research when I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, thinking I had heard something. And because I didn't have a gun available, I thought, there's nothing I can do. I'm completely vulnerable, and so are my kids, and what am I doing? I can easily identify with people who say that there is a risk that there could be danger, and so carrying a gun makes sense. I understand that worldview now in a way that I never did before. I still think, though, with my familiarity with the research, that the risk is greater that a gun will be used to harm even the gun owner.
What research from what source? That's what I wonder. I mean, obviously she's not reading Gottlieb and Workman and Lott and, and those. I suspect she's going to Brady and Everytown and Bloomberg and all those people for her research.
Then it will ever be used in self-defense. I have these conflicting views in myself. I would like not to have to carry a gun in public.
I mean, I got 2 words for her. Gary Kleck. Read his research.
And I want to do whatever I can to help transform society, transform our politics, so that doesn't feel like an inevitability. Thank you all for coming. I really agree with the sentiments that were expressed about the importance of talking about issues like this at the community level. Getting offline, off social media, and having face-to-face conversations is one of the healthiest things we can do. So tonight we're going to talk about gun violence, a topic that is more pressing today than it was when I started my research.
We have to figure out a way to have a dialogue. And having somebody like Angela, who is a scholar in this subject, but who is also herself as a gun owner, she is kind of a presence already somewhat in the middle, so that both sides have trust and respect for her.
No.
And that kind of helps to start the dialogue.
Guns are unique in their ability to provoke intense emotions and very little productive conversation across different perspectives. And this hit home for me. My book had just come out, and I was back home in Austin, and I was at my sister's house, and my mom was there, and they started this debate about concealed carry, and they're like screaming at each other. And I'm standing there as someone who just wrote a book about this, and not once did anyone say, like, well, actually, is anything we're saying true? Do you know anything about this topic? And of course, I'm the little sister and the daughter, so like probably that had something to do with it, but they weren't interested at all in the facts. As soon as I started talking about the facts, they didn't even want to have the conversation anymore.
Again, what you're presenting as fact is not necessarily so. What you're presenting as fact could be tainted by the source. I suspect that you're getting all your information from one side and not bothering to look at the other.
Who benefits when we won't even talk to each other about serious issues? When we're afraid? When we're either afraid of gun owners and guns, or that we're afraid that the government's going to take our guns? Who benefits when we're afraid of crime? And who is benefiting from this current political climate where we're losing the ability to talk to each other about difficult issues? Are we benefiting? I think the clear answer is no, and that's something we all have in common. I want us to be on one team, right? Like I'm thinking about this on the community level. And for me, that's what democracy is supposed to be about, not get the NRA involved in our conversation so we can't even talk. Or any other lobby organization. I mean, I'm picking on them because of this topic, but the Giffords gun lobby groups have been as problematic. Bloomberg's groups are not helpful.
At least she's
right
right
about
about
that. We need to do this work to a great extent.
Why don't we confiscate cars from crazy people? Why do we only confiscate guns from crazy people?
Sure. Got to be some regulation somewhere.
I own an AR-15. I won't get into why.
Sure.
Other than 38 years in the Army, it's what I'm familiar with. Shooting. It's not at home loaded right now.
I have a huge fear of somebody has a weapon of mass destruction.
Sure, but guns aren't weapons of mass destruction.
When you focus just on the political level or the gun lobby level, people are very entrenched in their positions. They're either pro-gun adamantly or they're anti-gun adamantly, and nuance gets completely lost. But when you start to open the door for conversation and there's a sense of trust that I'm not here to take away your guns, I just want to talk about, are there possibilities for reducing gun violence?
Well, okay, let's first start by rejecting the term gun violence because it's violence. The tool is irrelevant.
Crime.
The tool used to commit the violence is irrelevant. It's violence. It's violence, period. You know, more people are killed with blunt objects, fists and feet, than there are with rifles of any type, let alone the small subset that is the AR-15, of which she's so terrified. You know, I'm trying not to win that wonderful wound-up award.
Then people start to reveal their complexity.
And I'm not opposed to what you talked about. Would I
At the meeting, there was one man who described how he owns an AR-15 because that gun style came up in the discussion. And he approached me after the meeting and we talked a bit. And one of the things that came from that conversation was his willingness to admit that he has ambivalence about some of our gun policies.
So we'll go and walk.
Guns take on a different meaning when you have to kind of recognize that they're not just one thing. Gun ownership is about identity. It's about emotions. And that in this complexity, we need to be willing to engage rationally so that we don't just stick with these very tiresome pro-gun, anti-gun views and instead get to a better place. could become much worse than we are today, or we could become much better than we are today. I mean, who would have imagined 15 years ago that kindergartners would be learning active shooter drills by learning nursery rhymes about ducking cover from a shooter?
So get rid of the necessity by providing them with protection instead of mandating that the schools remove any protection from them. We protect banks and fast food joints and check cashing places and et cetera, better than we protect our schools. That's not right.
It's becoming so normal already. The worst thing that could happen is that we give up any hope at all that there's change that's possible. And we just naturalize gun violence like we naturalize all kinds of violence.
Again, I reject the statement. I reject the term gun violence. There's violence, period. Let's talk about that. In countries where they have heavy gun control, people still rent trucks and run them through crowds. People go on mass stabbing sprees. In Japan, I forget which city it was, but at that anime convention or anime studio where they doused the building with gasoline and set the place on fire and killed a bunch of people. You know, people do evil things with box cutters and airplanes and trucks full of diesel fuel and fertilizer. You know, people do evil things. People do evil things. Not the tools they use to do them.
So the worst fear is that we just assume this is just who we are as people.
So that was the first episode in this series on guns in America. My episode is supposed to be second, so I thought it was going to come out this week. Apparently, I was incorrect because it hadn't come out yet. This came out last Friday. The one they did with me, where he came to my town and we went to my local sportsman's club, and I had a discussion with some of my buddies that were there. They were shooting, and we had a discussion about guns and whatnot. And then he met me at the 2A rally in D.C. and kind of followed me around and filmed some stuff there and interviewed me there too. So we'll see what that looks like when it comes out. Of course, I'm going to share that with you guys. I mean, duh. Without being too antagonistic about it, I think it was you, Squib, that said that she just reeks of ignorance. I think that she approached things from an academic perspective and did research, but she did research from places that aren't necessarily going to give the actual facts.
She's the kind of person who could provide COVID-19 data to the governor of Michigan. Yeah, she's that sort of person. Meaning, just one-sided, not fact-checking, not going out and about, actually seeing it, sitting at a desk, crunching numbers, computers, stuff like that. Not really, you can study something all you want, but if you can actually visit it, or if you can actually learn it, or if you can, that's a whole different thing. It's a whole different appreciation for what you're doing. So she has the right to an opinion. It's a free country. She has the right to own those guns. But her words, she doesn't understand that what she's doing could one day lead to her not having the right to have that gun. And then what?
Yeah.
And my short answer to her would be, take it out of the Constitution and then we'll talk. Until then, I have nothing else to say to you, because that's why most of us, do this stuff. It is our constitutional right. Literally repeal the Second Amendment, and then every argument you've got is valid. But until you repeal it, then it's a moot point. So that's why I'm okay with the Supreme Court ruling on this crap.
Shoot, I wish they'd rule on it. I wish they'd take a case. That's starting to get tiresome.
I got to say, though, that just sitting through that was painful. And
it was very difficult for me not to blow up on just about everything they said.
You almost, I was about to type in the chat, here it comes, woospa. But still,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a hard act to follow. So hopefully yours kind of gives the other side of it really. I mean, you're well-spoken. I'm not saying that just to, whatever. I've seen you in action. You're well-spoken. I've seen you go up there and when nobody else really had anything productive to say, you were the only voice in the crowd that was, that was even keeled and you backed up what you had to say with facts and your experience. And so I'm hoping that your episode kind of rights the ship a little bit, at least give somebody both sides of it, not just a one-sided Bloomberg argument.
Yeah. Well, there are going to be more perspectives on this. Hers isn't the only one. Mine isn't the only one. I know that he showed people from all sides of this issue, which I have to give him respect for, because he's actually trying to keep his own stuff out of it and be unbiased and allow the interview subjects to tell their stories. Of course, I'll know for sure depending upon how the editing went with my segment, but as of now, I believe he, yes, pancakes, I read that and it was freaking hilarious. As of now, I think the reporter, Deepak Dobal is his name. I think that I think he's presenting the issue in a non-biased light, which is refreshing in journalism, period. Here is a trailer for the series. Make sure that I go to that.
This is a fight for our way of life and our freedom as Americans.
The United States Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's my buddy Jason.
Got to be some regulation somewhere.
Guns take on a different meaning when you have to kind of recognize that they're not just one thing.
Hunting has just kind of been a part of our lives as long back as I can remember.
I was shot 8 times.
My older son, he was murdered.
People think it's only a city problem, or it's only a domestic problem, or it's a gang problem, and that is absolutely not the truth. It hits families of every walk of life.
It's an attempt to demonize the tool. It's not the tool that kills, it's the person.
Easy access to a gun turns an impulse into a tragedy.
What frustrates lawful gun owners is that we get lumped into this heap in the media with people who are breaking the law. So there's a lot of ways to be safe with a gun.
Everybody press page 6.
We live in different realities, you know? If you've been affected by gun violence, what guns are is one thing, and if you've never been affected, you can kind of blithely go on with your life, never really confronting that.
So that's the trailer for the series, just to kind of give you a sneak peek of what's coming in it. We'll see. We'll see how my segment is treated.
Mike, is the original this series like on YouTube?
It is on Voice of America, VOA Connect, Voice of America, I think voiceofamerica.gov.com. Shit, I don't know. But there is a VOA Connect YouTube channel. That's what we just watched. That well, actually, the trailer was on Deepak's YouTube account, but the doggone it, I had the other one, the that lady segment pulled up on the Voice of America channel, YouTube channel.
Yeah, I really couldn't hear that video very well, regardless if it was he, she, it, the other guy, whatever. I couldn't hear much of it at all. I'm sorry. I'm on a Bluetooth on a cell phone on my porch, so maybe.
Here, let me throw a link out there for VOA Connect. Come on, here we go.
You know,
there is a link for VOA Connect out there, folks, if you really want to go watch it. They actually have some decent stuff on a bunch of topics. So yeah, there's that wonderful stance. That's wow, dude. Go ahead, Squib.
She said that, we need to have a conversation. And I hear people on our side have that too, or say that too. And my thing is, these people don't want to have the conversation.
No.
They've got their minds made up. They don't want, every now and then you get to take somebody to the range. Every now and then somebody asks some questions. I remember I had some friends that were from England. They got their U.S. citizenship. And he had one really expensive hunting rifle, but he didn't even know how to use it. He actually wanted me to teach him how to hunt and take him shooting and stuff like that. I never did, but one time I went over to their house and I brought 3 of my antique British rifles because I wanted to show them that, look, here's guns from your home. And
was your gateway drug?
Well, kind of like it's not all about having something with 18 accessories hanging off of it that looks like a machine gun but isn't. And I don't know. I really couldn't really get through to them. They had their mind made up. Good people, don't get me wrong, and they're entitled to their opinion. But they weren't like, get those things out of our house or whatever. But some people they don't want to have that conversation, even if they're people you see in everyday life or people you call friend, or they have some interest but not that much interest. And you can't twist somebody's arm. But her problem is she's having the conversation on the side of the pro 2A people, but she's talking like an anti 2A person. Correct. You can't stand on this side of the fence but have their rhetoric, and it's the whole, well, we've got, however tens of millions of gun owners in this country. Just because you own a gun, obviously, here's evidence. You don't care about your constitutional rights.
Oh, yeah. Just simply because you're a gun owner does not mean you're pro Second Amendment. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And that's part of the difficulty of what we as Second Amendment advocates, because I consider myself an advocate, not an activist, because I don't do enough in the legislative arena and the political arena to consider myself an activist. But that's what we as Second Amendment advocates have to fight against, is well, I'm a gun owner. That means I support the Second Amendment, but I don't think you should be able to have this, that, or the other. we kind of have to fight against that. We have to make them realize somehow. We have to try to educate them, A, on what the actual meaning and philosophy behind it is, and B, get them to realize that, they're not safe either. Their beloved Weatherby shotgun, that evil, that like she had. To a lot of anti-gunners, that's an assault weapon simply because it's a semi-automatic shotgun. She doesn't get it.
I remember I took one guy to the range that never shot a gun before, and we rented a couple guns. And when we were all done, I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "It wasn't as bad as I thought." He said, "I don't think I'm going to own a gun, but I think I understand it a little bit better. I understand why people have them. I understand, because I taught him some firearm safety and things like that, and he didn't realize it's not like in the movies where you just pick it up and just start blasting away, and he was kind of scared, the first shot, and then when he realized that, with your ear pro and eye pro, and you're in a controlled range and everything, okay, it's not going to throw me across the room, and it's not going to, and when you have moments like that, that's good, and maybe that person walks away and go, "No, I'm still not interested in having a gun, but it's not what I saw in the movies."
Yeah,
I think that experiences like that go a little bit more to when somebody sees one of us or hears one of us, they go, "Yeah, no, this guy's not a nut job. He's not a criminal. He's not it's not what you think. Just because I don't own one, just because I don't want one, doesn't mean that I don't think you should. I didn't realize that they were like this. I didn't really." And you could sit there and start talking to them about the history of the Second Amendment or gun laws, or start quoting FBI statistics or something. I don't know that too many people really want to hear that stuff.
No, their eyes glaze over.
They believe Bloomberg, don't they?
Yeah, and their eyes glaze over. When you start tossing out facts and figures, their eyes glaze over. A lot of people live where I think this lady lives. She likes to believe that, and I could be wrong, but she likes to believe that she lives here, up in her head, up in her mind, that she thinks with the rational part of her brain that she's working things out in a logical fashion, but she's not. Everything she said was here. I believe, I think, I feel. Everything she said was in her heart. And that's what we have to capture. I mean, what I did as soon as we were done shooting the video for this? Have you ever shot a gun? I asked the reporter. I asked him, "Have you ever shot a gun?" "Nope, never." It's like, "Well, you want to?" I gave him a quick safety briefing and put a Taurus TX-22, as a matter of fact, in his hand and got him shooting at targets. Because, that's how you win. You show somebody. You can tell them all you want, but you got to show them.
That's awesome, Mike. I'm glad you got him to shoot.
Even if he decided he didn't want a gun, or he wasn't going to become an advocate or something like that.
Well, he lives in DC, so good luck.
He got to shoot it safely in a safe environment, and was taught and shown, and he's not going to be a gun expert, but he has a little bit more of an appreciation for the truth.
He has at least some idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just movie myths and crap.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to some good news. Not that, the previous segment was bad news, but, it was ambivalent. We'll see how that all turns out. I, of course, will let you guys know as soon as my segment airs, and, I'll definitely be sharing that with you guys. But next up, gun and ammunition sales soar as defund the police movement grows, by Chauncey Alcorn, CNN Business, from June 24th, 2020. This is from CNN.com, obviously. Let's see. New York. Coronavirus-fueled fears of social unrest already had Americans panic buying guns and bullets at record rates earlier this year. That was before the police killing of George Floyd caused an international uproar, leading to protests that, at times, descended into riots, arson, and looting in cities across the United States. Those circumstances and the rise of the Defund the Police movement, championed by Black Lives Matter activists, have led to a higher sales for firearms and ammunition dealers. Firearms dealers across the country have reported a recent spike in sales, citing the unrest following police brutality protests in support of George Floyd and calls to defund the police as catalysts, according to the gun industry analyst Rob Southwick, founder of the market research firm Southwick Associates, Inc. Anything that can cause people to feel unsafe in relation to possible physical crime to self, others, and property can drive firearm sales, Southwick told CNN Business. Background checks for firearms purchases reached an all-time high in March and maintained record highs for April and May, according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, a firearms trade association that monitors gun sale-related background checks to track industry trends. Semi-automatic handguns outpaced shotguns by a 2-to-1 margin as the weapons of choice among first-time gun buyers, according to gun merchants surveyed by NSSF. The latest national background check stats won't be available until July, but since Floyd's death on Memorial Day, NSSF Director of Public Affairs Mark Olivia said gun sellers have reported a sales spike similar to the one caused by the coronavirus. Excuse me, please. You're seeing a reaction to people's concerns about being able to provide safety for themselves and the ones they love, Olivia told CNN Business. More than 6.5 million gun sale background checks were conducted from January 1st through April 30th, according to the latest NSSF research, which showed a 48% year-over-year rise from the same period in 2019. Firearms retailers surveyed by NSSF in May estimated that 40% of their sales came from first-time gun buyers. Olivia said 40% of those first-time gun buyers were women, a relatively high rate for that demographic group. Although sales have been up across the country, a rise in first-time gun buyers in left-leaning states like California have helped fuel the national uptick in firearms and ammunition purchases, he noted. People are coming off the fences and the sidelines, and they're making decisions with their wallets about where they are in this debate about firearms ownership, Olivia said. Earlier this month, Ben Romanoff, owner of Pittsburgh gun store Ace Sporting Goods, told KDKA-TV that his shop has seen a recent increase in gun purchases, noting that the local protesting and defunding police discussions have raised concerns among a new batch of customers. Largo, Florida gun store owner Jillian Bitts of Mad Dog Armory reported a similar gun sales spike last week. We've gotten a lot of new customers, Blitz told the local newspaper. The protests started happening, and then people just started getting nervous. Well, I can't imagine why. If we have roving mobs of people looting and burning and destroying crap at seeming random, gee, how could people start getting nervous, and why would they want to start defending themselves, right?
But we have to have a conversation about the violence these inanimate objects do.
I know. Only police.
I feel in my heart.
Only police should have guns, and we shouldn't have the police.
Frogs and crickets.
That's the logic. How many years have we heard that? Only the police should have guns. Now they don't want police. So what?
No, don't want police is just ridiculous. The only other options are, with no police, either the bad guys have control, or the government resorts to martial law, or the patriots like us are going to have to take over and defend the people we care about from the bad guys. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, in a way, if it weren't for, okay, obviously there are exceptions. If it weren't for the old folks and domestic abuse and rapes and, stuff like that, I would kind of like to tell all police to take a week off and let these people see the reality of what it would be like without them.
Pardon me. Guy that comments says, hopefully the majority buying aren't redcoats and go down the freedom rabbit hole. I hope so too. I hope so too. And last up in our news segment is good news out of Indiana. This is from Gunwatch, Thursday, June 25th, 2020. Free handgun carry permit goes into effect on 1st July 2020. On April 26, 2019, Indiana HB 1284 became Public Law 107. The bill was a major reform of firearm carry law in Indiana. One of the reforms was free 5-year permits for the carry of handguns in Indiana after 1st July 2020. Most of the reforms went into effect immediately when the bill became law. They included law enforcement offices were required to provide voter registration form whenever a person applied for a license to carry a handgun. People who justifiably defended themselves with force in most instances were granted immunity from civil lawsuit. If the immunity defense was raised and prevailed, reasonable attorney's fees and costs would be awarded to the defendant by the court. The restriction on carrying possessing guns on school property was removed for people who were attending worship services or religious ceremonies on school property as an employee or volunteer of a house of worship located on school property. The duration of a handgun carry license was changed from 4 years to 5 years. Here's the wording removing the fee for 5-year licenses. The application fee for lifetime licenses becomes $50 or $40 if you have a current 5-year license. First, removal of the application fee starting 1st July 2020. This subsection applies after June 30th, 2020. The law enforcement agency which accepts an application for a handgun license shall not collect a fee from a person applying for a 5-year handgun license and shall collect the following application fees. From a person applying for a lifetime handgun license who does not currently possess a valid Indiana handgun license, a $50 application fee, $30 of which shall be refunded if the license is not issued. From a person applying for a lifetime handgun license who currently possesses a valid Indiana handgun license, a $40 application fee, $30 of which shall be refunded if the license is not issued. Second, removal of the fee for the license. There are different fees for qualified and unlimited licenses. I suspect few qualified licenses are issued. The fee for a lifetime license is $25 for a qualified license and $75 for a lifetime unlimited license, with reductions of $5 and $15 if the applicant possesses a current 5-year license. A qualified license is $0 for a 5-year license, $25 for a lifetime qualified license for a person who does not currently possess a valid Indiana handgun license, and $20 for... No, I don't know what a qualified and unlimited licenses are in Indiana. Perhaps Roe could explain this, but he didn't come tonight. The two fees are added to make up the cost of the permit. The unlimited lifetime permit fees will be $125 total if the applicant does not have a current permit. Whenever license fees are reduced or eliminated, the numbers of people who obtain licenses increases. In Indiana, the number of adults with carry permits was nearly 18% a year ago. It had the second highest percentage of adults with permits in the nation. It is likely, now that fees have been eliminated for 5-year permits, the number will increase to more than 20%. Virtually all of those people are eligible to vote, and voter registration forms are now handed out with an application for a permit. 16 states do not require a permit to carry a handgun, in most places concealed or openly. This is by Dean Weingarten. So that's kind of cool. You no longer have to pay a fee to exercise your constitutional right in Indiana. And frankly, I think that's how it should be. Maybe the rest of us will get there eventually.
Well, good for roll call, good for Indiana. I'm glad to see somebody's trying to take a step in the right direction.
Yep. Absolutely right. I think the fact that, well, I think that it's dumb that we have to get a permit to exercise a constitutional right in the first place. But I also think, doggone it, I also think I'm a knucklehead because I don't have a writing utensil handy, and I need one. What a maroon, what an ignoramus. I also think it's abject stupidity to have to pay to exercise a right. Speaking of abject stupidity.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
For those who don't know what Moron of the Week is, I have selected a couple candidates a couple candidates for your consideration based on someone who has said or done something Second Amendment related that is just completely out there. First up this week, in this piece from BearingArms.com, posted 5 p.m. on June 23rd, 2020 by Cam Edwards. Jon Stewart's irresistible cheap shot at gun owners. The former host of The Daily Show has a new political-themed movie coming out called Irresistible, starring Steve Carell as a Democrat campaign operative who convinces a military veteran and farmer to run for the mayor of his small Wisconsin town in the hopes of creating a politician who could turn around the Democrats, diminishing appeal among rural voters. I confess, the setup seems a little weak, but the trailer provides a few laughs at the expense of both the left and the right. Film critic Christian Toto reports, however, that towards the end of the film, Stewart, who loves to pose on occasion as some sort of elder statesman of nonpartisanship, lets his ideological freak flag fly at the expense of gun owners. Mild spoilers ahead. So if you're planning to watch this, you might want to sit there for a bit and go, la, 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 la. The sequence in question shows activists trying to persuade last-minute voters. We see several special interest groups greeting passers-by with their pitches. This includes Build the Wall voices, pro-coal voices, a group of Antifa-like anarchists, tiki torchbearers talking up white power. You have to strain to hear those words. There's zero chance the latter group would assemble in such a family-friendly setting. Still, one could argue Stewart frames all the activists in a neutral manner. Then the camera zooms in on a gun rights table. We see several gun owners, all white, inviting strangers to grab a free pen and hear their sales pitch. Again, nothing unusual there. Pro-Second Amendment groups are part of the political fabric. When we see a Black Lives Matter activists approach the table, or we then see a group of Black Lives Matter activists approach the table, the white gun owners suddenly pull back the pens as if they don't want to even share them with the men. Next, the black activists approach, with one extending a hand for a shake. You can probably guess what happens next. The rural white gun owners end up talking about the best caliber for the AR platform with the Black Lives Matter activists, while the Shannon Watts-esque gun control advocate looks on in horror. Actually, that would have been far more amusing than the cheap and predictable joke Stewart offers instead. The white gun owner refuses to shake the hand of the black activists. As Toto says, the scene is a reminder that Stewart's Comedy Central reign set the template for the late night's current sorry state. But more than that, it's also a reminder that to Stewart and The Daily Show, conservative gun owners were always the butt of the joke. I've got pretty thick skin, and as a rural white dude with a bit of a belly and a lot of beard, I'm used to the whole dumb redneck stereotype. Heck, it's made comedians like Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy wealthy men. I can also take a joke, so my issue isn't with Stewart predictably trying to make guys like me out to be a racist buffoon. I just find it sad that Stewart is so uninterested in portraying American gun owners as they actually are, a cross-section of society. Stewart will make fun of NRA members, but what about the National African American Gun Association? He'll mock right-wing gun nuts, but would he ever make the socialist John Brown Rifle Club, I think he actually means John Brown Gun Club, the target of one of his jokes? I suppose it's possible, but Stewart was apparently able to resist the temptation while filming Irresistible. In fact, Stewart is content to pretend that the lives of gun owners who don't fit his stereotypes simply don't exist, much less matter. I'd say if their interaction between Black Lives Matter activists and rural gun owners played out in real life, there's as good a chance that the members of the two groups would end up having a good time talking about guns than getting into a political argument or gun owners giving them the cold shoulder. I don't think Jon Stewart will ever be a fan of the Second Amendment, but does he have to be so lazy in pushing his point of view? It's bad enough to rely on a stereotype for a cheap laugh, but by refusing to acknowledge that Americans across the political spectrum, as well as those who've tuned out of politics completely, exercise their right to keep and bear arms, Stewart's guilty of the same kind of political manipulation he's targeting with his latest movie. So, oh, got it. Rada. I guess I'll have to use a marker. I don't want to use a marker, but I got to. Jon Stewart is the first candidate for Moron of the Week. But wait, of course, there's more. This bit of more comes in the form of the Los Angeles Times editorial board. This is a piece from Breitbart. from June 17th, 2020. LA Times editorial board, surge in gun sales is madness. The LA Times editorial board suggests the current surge in gun sales is madness. It delivered this observation after describing month after month of record-breaking firearm background checks during coronavirus shutdowns. They noted, since the start of the pandemic, Americans are buying more guns. The FBI says it conducted a record 3.7 million background checks for would-be gun buyers, a loose proxy for firearm sales, in March as lockdown orders spread across the nation. In April, the checks dropped to 2.9 million, but rebounded to 3.1 million in May. The monthly average for 2019, itself a record year for background checks, was 2.4 million. So even as we get fresh studies connecting possession of firearms with increased risk of gun violence, accidental shootings, usually by children, and suicides, we are adding more firearms to the nation's already numbingly large privately owned arsenal of some 300 million guns. No reliable count is available, owned by about a third of the population. The board added, this is madness. No, man, this is Sparta. The board
Took the words right out of my mouth.
The board did not mention that in record-setting months like April 2020, the sales of handguns dominated the sales of all other firearms. Breitbart News reported Small Arms Analytics and Forecasting's chief economist Jürgen Brauer noted the ratio of handguns to long guns sold set a new record of 1.94 in April. That ratio broke the previous high of 1.84 set just a month ago. Those handgun sales are indicative of self-defense purchases. But the LA Times board lauded gun control and praised this week's announcement that the Supreme Court of the United States would not hear 10 different challenges to gun control laws around the country. So the LA Times editorial board is contestant number 2 for Moron of the Week. But wait, we have yet another idiot. And this isn't directly Second Amendment related, I have to say, but it touches upon our country, and yeah, screw them. This is from Fox8.com by the Associated Press. Semi-pro soccer team to replace national anthem from June 26th. Tulsa, Oklahoma. A semi-pro soccer team based in Tulsa will replace the national anthem with Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land at all home matches. The Tulsa Athletic made the announcement in the news release. Official club statement regarding the announcement of playing Woody Guthrie's This Land. After careful consideration and reflection, our club will now play Woody Guthrie's This Land before our home matches. The verbiage and meaning behind the third stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner does not reflect who we are as a club. From the beginning, our club's mission has always been to create an inclusive community through soccer, and we feel this land best aligns with our core values while maintaining our commitment to a better future for all. The Athletic are part of the National Premier Soccer League, which has more than 90 teams. In a statement, the team said it went away from the Star-Spangled Banner after reviewing its lyrics. In particular, it referred to the rarely sung third verse of Francis Scott Key's poem. The team says it does not believe the Star-Spangled Banner represents or unites their diverse players, fans, and community. So what the hell are they talking about? Well, let's do a quick Google search here. Star-Spangled Banner, all lyrics. So what they're talking about is this: and where the band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more. Their blood has washed out of their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight and the gloom of the grave. Which is talking about not bowing down and becoming the hireling or the slave of the British crown, the king. So, yeah, because, that's horrible and racist because it mentions the word slave. How retarded can you get? And I know that's not politically correct to say, but...
Yeah, but we're from the 80s. It was a regular term then. They'll take that away too. Whatever. My question is, who the hell watches soccer?
Who the hell in Oklahoma watches soccer? Armament Nack says, thank you for the super chat, sir. Says, okay, can I just say all of this liberal BS is dumb? Yeah.
For $2 you can.
Yeah, for $2 you can. You could have said it without the $2. And then, as always, we have Joe Biden bringing up the rear. Of course, I probably wouldn't want him behind me. I might get randomly sniffed or my fingers nibbled. All right, folks, let's go ahead and see what everybody thinks. Squib, who do you think deserves the title of Moron of the Week this week? Jon Stewart, the LA Times editorial board, the Tulsa Athletics, or Joe Biden?
First, I want to say thanks for the Moron of the Week on Midnight Show on Sunday. That was great. I kind of feel like it's like a badge of honor or something when you put that in the background.
Oh, so, yeah. That was you. Yeah. I did that too.
Yeah, because I said I was a moron. I screwed something up real bad, and you just threw that in, and I'm like, that was beautiful.
One is glad to be of service.
Somebody who shouldn't wear it as a badge of honor are these soccer players or their whole organization.
All right, the Tulsa Athletic. 7, who do you vote for? Jon Stewart, LA Times editorial board, the Tulsa Athletic, or Joe Biden?
Even though the other 3 deserve it, clearly Tulsa Athletics. That's ridiculous. As I put in the text chat, if you don't, well, first of all, you don't replace the national anthem, and if you don't like it, please feel free to leave America and find somewhere you love.
All right, this is where it goes to you folks out there in the chat. We got 28 watching. Let me see some votes. Who do you think deserves the title of Moron of the Week for June 26th, well, now 27th, 2020? Jon Stewart, the LA Times editorial board, the Tulsa Athletic, or Joe Biden? Go ahead and vote. Chris Fulmer says Stewart. Seven, you already voted. This isn't mail-in, man. You can't do that.
I just feel really strongly about that.
Tata says Tulsa. Iron Horseman says Tulsa. So far, that's 4 for the Athletic, 1 for Jon Stewart. Ozzy Osbourne barks at the Athletic. David Ramirez does as well. Coffee, Guns and Ammo Astronomy says, I'm just checking in late, so I vote both. Pick one. Jon Stewart, LA Times editorial board, soccer, the Tulsa Athletic, or Joe Biden?
I mean, you can't go wrong with Joe Biden, but just what Tulsa Athletics are doing or whatever, that's just...
Yeah, wanting to replace it with this land is our land. Give me a break. Guy that comments says Tuscaloosa, so I will say that is close enough to Athletic. Armament Axes says Jon Stewart. Right now we got the Athletic at 7 and Jon Stewart at 2. LA Times and Joe Biden with 0. Anybody else? Iron Horseman says Tulsa is un-American. Absolutely right. Bueller. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call this one. Tulsa Athletic, you are the morons of the week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
Someone once commented that maybe I watched too much Pigs in Space. I think maybe I did. I watched The Muppet Show when I was young. And it shows.
It's good, wholesome family fun.
It was.
You know, but today I'm sure it would be racist because everything's racist.
Yeah, well, of course. Someone would be triggered. Someone would absolutely be triggered. Well, we're getting close to that time, folks. We are drawing to the end, as all good things must do. But before we start to roll up the sidewalks and take down the awnings and sweep the floors, we have to go to Roll Call 219's favorite segment, the Self-Defense Shoutouts. Self-defense shoutouts, if you are new to the show or have not stuck around to the end, self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It is where I am reveling in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent the bad guy from making them do the same. Because that's not how it's supposed to work. And this is going to be a short one today, folks, because I only have two. First, from KTLA.com. 2 men fatally shot after breaking into Long Beach home. 1 suspect, new resident, police said. By Christina Bravo, Erica Martin, Steve Kuj. I have no idea how the hell to say that, so I apologize. From June 23rd, 2020. 2 men were shot dead after breaking into a home of a person, one of them new, in Long Beach early Tuesday morning, police said. A resident on the 1000 block of Almond Court near 11th Street reported around 12:10 a.m. that he'd opened fire on an intruder, Long Beach police said in a news release. Officers who responded to the scene found 18-year-old Jose Perez of Long Beach inside the home with multiple gunshot wounds to his upper torso. Sergio Pacheco, a 25-year-old Long Beach man, was found laying in the street with gunshot wounds to his upper torso a few blocks away on the 1100 block of Gundry Avenue, according to investigators. Paramedics attempted life-saving measures, but the men died at the scene, officials said. An earlier statement from Long Beach police provided incorrect information on the locations where officers found the men, police said Wednesday. Both Pacheco and Perez are considered suspects in the break-in. Pacheco and one of the home's residents were at one time associates, detectives said in the news release. The police department declined to provide further details on the nature of their relationship. Investigators believe the 2 slain men arrived at the home unannounced, forced their way in, and assaulted 2 people inside. The resident then grabbed a gun and opened fire, officials said. Police say Perez collapsed in the street while fleeing the scene. A resident was taken to a nearby hospital for an injury, Lieutenant Robert Woods said. The lieutenant did not have information on how the resident got hurt. Video from the location showed a large police presence Tuesday morning as the investigation continued into the circumstances surrounding the killings. Detectives say the residents are cooperating in the investigation, which remains active. The motive for the break-in is unknown. So, good. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Maybe they should be in Moron of the Week. Posthumously. And last but absolutely not least, from abc57.com by Roxy Elliott from June 25th, 2020. Coloma homeowner shoots, kills intruder. Coloma, Michigan. A homeowner shot and killed a home invasion suspect in his home Thursday morning, according to Coloma Township Police. Police were dispatched to the 5500 block of Paw Paw Lake Road around 2:30 a.m. for reports of a home invasion in progress. While on the way, dispatchers advised police the homeowner possibly shot the intruder, reports said. Officers arrived and the homeowner came out of the house with his hands in the air. Inside the home, officers found 47-year-old Kevin Cox deceased from a single gunshot wound in the home. The homeowner, who did not want to be identified, told ABC 57 he did not know the suspect. He said Cox entered through a window and the sound woke him up. When the homeowner came out of his room, he saw Cox in his living room, he said. The homeowner told Cox to lie on the ground several times, but Cox ran at him, so the homeowner shot him 1 time. One neighbor said most residents in the area have guns for protection. They break in here, I'm going to shoot them. I got a gun sitting in there. You've got to protect yourself. You don't want to, but you have to. Larry Moron said. The neighbors did not recognize Cox's name and said they didn't know if he lived nearby, but there is a housing complex nearby where residents move in and out often. There's a lot of people coming and going that move in, move out, transient movers that cause a little bit of trouble there, but most of them don't, said Bob Faulkner. An autopsy is scheduled in Kalamazoo. The homeowner's name is being withheld due to the ongoing investigation. The case will be reviewed by the prosecutor's office once completed. So, and there's another moron candidate right there. Armament Naxis says Darwin Awards. Yes, but that Darwin Awards only apply if they haven't reproduced yet, because they have to take themselves out of the gene pool. But there you have it, folks. 2 instances in which the homeowner, despite what NPR and Giffords and Everytown and Bloomberg's other proxies would have you believe, a good guy with a gun stopped the bad guy from doing harm. And that wraps it up, folks. It is that time. I'd like to thank my distinguished guests for joining me tonight. I know David Campbell was out there in the chat earlier. He attempted to join, but he was having technical difficulties. So, I didn't have any tonight other than my mic being turned down a little bit too far. So somebody had to, or it wouldn't be an episode of The Right of the People, right? Speaking of an episode of The Right of the People, it wouldn't be one without Squibload. Thank you very much for coming into the show and giving us your wonderful insights, you lovable and irascible fellow you. Is there anything you would like to plug? Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with? Anything at all you'd like to say in closing, sir?
No, just thanks for the invite and good show.
And you are welcome, sir. Speaking of welcome, we have 7 Wonders joining us this evening. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
No, not really. It was a great show. Good topics. Thank you for the invite. And yeah, the only thing I have would open a new can of worms. So we'll save that for next week.
All right. Now's where I thank everybody out there in the chat for sticking around and being part of the conversation tonight. As always, I am humbled and amazed that you've chosen to spend this time with us. I mean, we started at 11:30. It is 2.25 hours later, and some of you have been here from beginning to end, and I just can't believe it. Wow. You could be out doing stuff on a Friday night, and you're watching this? Humbled. Earlier I gave that link to a petition about the pistol braces. Make sure you tell your Congress critters and elected representatives what you think about the plans they have in store for us and our rights. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, semaphore, heliograph, smoke signals, anything that you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.